Chris Landry on your radio Mondays, 4 to 4:30. Make sure to check him out, Landry Football, also LandryFootball.com. Chris, welcome in, sir. How are you?
Good, Jake. How you doing?
Doing well. All right, let's start with some NFL. We may try to drop some college in here. Spring practice is going on around the country. Some are already starting to button this thing up. But with the draft now 2 weeks out, a lot of the pro days are over. Kind of take us through where teams are at, generally from this point forward, with just a couple weeks left.
Beginning their final meetings, final setting up their draft board. And, at this stage, you have, in initial meetings, have gone through, every player in your book that you've seen, A to Z at each position. And if the guy's kind of what we call on the reject board, you maybe spend a little time as to why. Now you go in these final meetings, and when you get to those guys, unless you want to, as we call, resurrect somebody, you don't spend time on them. You spend time on guys that you've been given a potential draftable grade on. And the way it works is everybody in the room that's seen the guy, the area scout, maybe a regional scout, maybe a national scout, personnel director, college director, position coach, everybody gives a report on the player. And you kind of you have discussions, and we normally did. We had a profile tape where you'll have 30 or 40 cut-ups, good and bad plays of what a player is, and you put on the tape and watch the guy. And you can kind of sit there and communicate with one another as you're watching it all together. You go through that process, very long meetings. It take, a good full day, early in the morning to late at night to get through one position, sometimes even a day and a half for some positions. And when you get done with that position, you really go and try to stack the board as you see them in the right order. And to me, the key is not just rank 1 through whatever. It's how many guys are graded in the 6'9" to 6'5" category, the 6'4" to 6'0", whatever numerical grade you have, how guys are stacked. So you got some tiebreakers, and maybe you got 4 guys at the 6'4" grade. What order should they be in? You go over painstaking detail, and you get through all of that process, and then you kind of, at the end, you go and make sure that your top 150 board, best players regardless of position, which we call the horizontal board, are in the right order. So in painstaking detail, you set up your board. It's not like people talk about on TV, well, this guy's ranked here, there. People are just getting their final rankings now, and a lot of you hear this conversation, folks on TV, whatever, say, well, yeah, this guy's moving up boards. Not moving up boards. It's just those people are late to the party on getting the information. And what really matters is going through that whole process. Yeah, people say, well, how could grades change, and we're here in March. You haven't played football in a while. Because it takes all that time to look at all the film from last year and to have everybody look at it. So your position coach, your head coach, your coordinator might just be getting through all the tape now, whereas an area scout, you might have got done with it in January. So everybody has to weigh in, and every team, every organization puts more emphasis on either their scouts or a certain scout or coaches, because everybody operates a little different.
Chris Landry on your radio Monday edition of the program. Find him on X at Landry Football, also LandryFootball.com. All right, Chris, a lot of, obviously chatter about the quarterbacks, but then some of these teams that may possibly be looking for a quarterback. Where do you think Dallas is with Jerry Jones and Dak Prescott? And, Dallas hasn't made a ton of moves, almost none, in free agency. Jones said, himself he wasn't going to speak any further than 2024. I believe they picked Prescott up, right after Tony Romo, was walking out the door. He was the starter after all the injuries and such. It took a couple years. Could Dallas possibly be, looking around for a different type of quarterback?
Well, they haven't done anything in free agency because they can't afford to because of Dak's contract or lack thereof. So his cap number is high, and they have not had much movement on getting a long-term deal done. Would they consider a quarterback? It's certainly possible. I don't know how they have those guys rated, whether they remember Dak was somebody that they weren't real high on, but drafted him. They graded him high enough to draft him where they did. But if you remember that year, they liked the kid from Memphis, Paxton Lynch, and tried to trade and didn't get him, and then they just took Dak in the third round. Could that happen again this year? Of course it could. Anything is possible. I think that, to me, though, when you consider the MO of Jerry and his age and wanting to win, starting with another young quarterback would probably start the clock over again, and I don't really see that. So we'll see how it plays out. If the right guy's there, certainly I think they would consider it, but I just don't know that they're going to go for that guy early.
What about the Los Angeles Rams? Stafford is getting on up in age. I mean, 36 years old. Garoppolo has some age. Sean McVay trying to continue to rework this roster. Could they potentially be looking?
I think so. I think that's definitely somebody that needs to get a quarterback in there. And I think there's a little bit of an issue there because they like him, but of his age and injury history, I think grooming a young guy. Again, this is why, and we've talked about quarterbacks, the supply and demand factor. It's more in the player's advantage. The demand factor is greater than the supply. So who can you get there, and who do you like? And let's just say this: it doesn't mean that there's not going to be somebody that you can't get a little bit down the road that might be able to be developed. We know that has happened. It's just not as common, and the reason is you got to consider quarterbacks to be, in most cases, overdrafted. When I say overdrafted, that's not a negative comment. It's just if you like them, you better take them a lot sooner because they're not going to be around longer. That's why a guy like maybe J.J. McCarthy is going to go a lot. I mean, I know you've asked about him weeks ago, and yeah, he's going to go a lot higher than people might think. Well, why? Well, because of the supply and demand factor, and so you have to factor that in. The later you're drafting, well, you might be taking guys a lot earlier, maybe as much as a round and a half to 2 rounds higher than they should go.
Let's finish this segment talking one of the quarterback, and then I want to get some college after the break here with you. When you look at a guy like Joe Milton III, I've seen his name. You just talk about these articles pop up in different places that he may be a guy that people take chances on 3rd round through 7th round. Is he the kind of guy? I mean, from when you look at his game, that is it just he hasn't been able to be developed? I mean, we've heard a lot of hype behind this guy when he was at Michigan, Tennessee. Now it's coming up in the NFL. Or, I mean, is this a league that he can play in? If that makes sense.
Well, the guy's got immense physical tools, size and arm strength are there. It's never been accurate, and, that's why he hasn't developed. So I'm not high on him. Now, does it mean that somebody might take him? Yeah, somebody could take him late. There's no question about that. And somebody takes on him 3rd, 4th round, I think you're passing up much better players, at other positions to take him that high. But I just mentioned, they're elevated, so maybe you'd take a guy like that. I just don't have a lot of confidence in that's the type of guy you can develop. But later in the draft, you get guys that have physical skills that haven't been real productive, or you get really productive guys that lack the physical acumen that you ideally like. So it's one of the two that are late. He's certainly the former, not the latter. So, but I'm not real thrilled about him. I think that, yes, he needs to be developed, but what are you developing? You're developing a guy that's not real accurate, doesn't get the ball accurately to spots that you need to, and I think that's a problem, and I think it's always been a problem and likely will always continue to be a problem, but it doesn't mean that I don't think the guy deserves a chance and won't get a chance because I do think he has intriguing physical quality.